Some stories don't start with a sunrise. They start with a locked door and a mind that can't tell the difference between truth and fear. He wakes up in a cold room with steel bars, and the first punch isn't the wall. It's the question. Who am I? No name, no past, no clean memory, just a heavy silence, and people outside acting like they already know the ending. They say it was love. They say it was murder. And the worst part? He can't even argue with his own brain. Have you ever lost something small, like your keys, and felt your whole day fall apart? Now imagine losing your entire self. Because today isn't just another day. Today is Judgment Day, and his life is about to be decided by Strand. Jers. So stick with me. Leave a like, subscribe, and let's step into the locked room together. He wakes up staring at a ceiling he doesn't recognize, cracked like a memory that refuses to come back whole. The room smells like metal disinfectant and something older, fear that never really leaves the walls. Steel bars cut the light into thin lines, turning the floor into a quiet cage of shadows. His hands tremble, not from cold, but from the weight of not knowing who they belong to. No photos, no mirror he trusts, no voice calling his name from the other side. Just silence pressing against his chest, asking questions he can't answer. And in that silence, the first truth hits hard. He is trapped, and not just by iron. At first, he thinks it's a bad dream, the kind that fades if you close your eyes tight enough. He tries that once, twice, 3 times, waiting for reality to crack and let him out. But the room doesn't move, doesn't blink, doesn't care about hope or denial. Hope, he learns quickly, is dangerous when memory is gone. Because without memory, every thought feels suspicious, every emotion feels borrowed. He wonders if fear is instinct or evidence of something darker inside him. That question stays, circling his mind like a locked door with no handle. Footsteps echo outside, heavy and slow, carrying judgment before any words are spoken. When the door opens, eyes meet him not with curiosity, but with certainty. They look at him like a man already defined by his worst moment. He tries to speak, but even his voice sounds unfamiliar, like it belongs to someone else. I don't remember, he says, and here's how weak it sounds in the air. To them, silence means guilt, and confusion feels like performance. To him, it's just the truth, raw, embarrassing, and completely alone. He scans the room again, desperate for clues, like someone searching pockets for a lost past. A bed bolted to the floor, a small table, a cup of water he doesn't remember asking for. Nothing personal, nothing human, nothing that says you belong here. That's when it sinks in. This place isn't about healing, it's about containment. A prison for bodies and a courtroom for the mind. He wonders how many people have sat here before, claiming innocence to empty walls. And for the first time, doubt creeps in, not about them, but about himself. They tell him he's here because of love, and that word hits harder than any accusation. Love is supposed to feel warm, familiar, safe, but this feels sharp and unstable. If love brought him here, what kind of love was it? The kind that protects, or the kind that destroys when it turns into madness? He wants to reject the idea completely, but without memory, rejection feels dishonest. When you can't remember your past, even your heart becomes a suspect. That thought stays with him long after the door closes again. Time stretches strangely inside the locked room, like it forgot how to move forward. Minutes feel heavy, hours feel blurred, and the future feels already decided. He realizes this room isn't just holding him, it's preparing him for judgment, for labels, for a story he didn't write. And deep down, beneath fear and silence, one question won't let go. If the truth is buried in his mind, what happens when it never comes back? That question opens a path to something darker, something waiting just beyond the door. The hardest part isn't the locked door anymore. It's the absence of a name to answer to. When they ask who he is, his mouth opens, but nothing comes out that feels real. A name should land like a fact, solid and unquestionable. Yet his mind offers only static. It's strange how something so small can define whether you feel human or invisible. Without a name, he feels unfinished, like a sentence cut in the middle. People talk about him, never to him, as if identity is a privilege he lost. And slowly, He begins to understand that forgetting your name is forgetting your place. He tries to rebuild himself from scraps. How he sits, how he reacts, how fear finds him. Maybe identity hides in habits, he thinks, the way a person holds a cup or avoids eye contact. But every movement feels borrowed, like he's wearing someone else's life. Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why you went there? Now stretch that feeling across an entire existence, and you'll get close. His mind reaches for something familiar, but finds only shadows and silence. Even his reflection feels like a stranger who refuses to explain himself. They hand him papers, forms filled with boxes he can't complete. Sign here, they say, and he hesitates longer than expected. What does it mean to sign when you don't know who you are agreeing to be? In the end, he marks an X, a symbol of surrender more than consent. That small gesture weighs heavier than chains ever could. It's not just a signature. It's proof that the system doesn't need his truth. It only needs his compliance. At night, thoughts circle endlessly, hunting for fragments of a former self. Was he kind or cruel, or just ordinary enough to be forgotten? He wonders if memory loss is mercy or punishment disguised as illness. Because without memory, guilt becomes contagious. You start feeling it anyway. People expect remorse. So remorse starts growing without roots. It's dangerous how easily the mind fills empty spaces with fear. And fear, once planted, doesn't need evidence to survive. Sometimes a word echoes in his head, love, without an image attached. No face, no voice, no warmth. Just the echo of something that mattered. Love without memory feels like pain without a wound. He asks himself if love is supposed to hurt this much when it disappears. If love led him here, was it devotion or obsession that crossed a line? Questions stack up faster than answers ever could. And every unanswered question tightens the invisible cage around his mind. The doctors call it confusion. The guards call it an act. The court calls it convenient. No one calls it what it feels like. Erasure. He isn't pretending to forget. He's fighting to remember anything at all. Truth feels fragile when you can't anchor it to the past. And without proof, truth sounds a lot like a story no one wants to hear. He begins to realize that memory isn't just personal, it's political. Whoever controls the narrative controls the man without a name. As the days pass, something shifts quietly inside him. If he can't remember who he was, maybe others will decide it for him. Their whispers, their looks, their assumptions start shaping his reflection. A man without memory becomes a mirror for other people's fears. And somewhere beyond the walls, voices are gathering, watching, waiting. Because soon, it won't be just his mind on trial. It will be his story, told by everyone except him. They don't ask if it happened anymore. They ask why. That's when he understands how deep this goes. The crime is already real to them. Files slide across the table, heavy with photos he refuses to study for too long. Each image feels like a trap, daring his mind to react, to confess without words. He searches for shock, disgust, recognition, anything that proves innocence. But his face stays neutral, and neutrality looks a lot like guilt in that room. Silence, once again, does most of the talking for him. They tell him he killed for love, and the phrase settles in the air like poison. Love isn't supposed to end in blood, yet history says otherwise. He wonders if passion can truly blind someone enough to destroy everything, or if that's just a story people tell when they need a simple motive. Wit, it's like being blamed for a dream you never dreamed. The mind resists, but the body absorbs the weight anyway. He tries to imagine the moment they describe, the argument, the rage, the act. But the scene won't form. It collapses every time he gets close. No flashes, no sounds, no emotional echo, just an empty space. It's terrifying how nothing can feel louder than something. Have you ever replayed a moment in your head, searching for what went wrong? Now imagine replaying a moment that may never come back. That absence becomes his strongest defense and his greatest curse. They push harder, assuming denial is part of performance. Every "I don't remember" sounds rehearsed to people hungry for certainty. To them, memory loss is convenient, almost insulting. They don't see the sickness in his eyes, the exhaustion in his posture. Judgment comes easier when empathy stays outside the door. And slowly, He realizes the truth doesn't need to be proven. It only needs to be. At night, doubt creeps in like an unwanted visitor. What if forgetting is a trick his mind is playing to survive? What if somewhere inside him, the memory is locked away on purpose? That thought shakes him more than the accusation itself. Because innocence feels fragile when you can't confirm it alone. The line between victim and monster blurs in the dark, and fear starts whispering possibilities he never invited. He remembers nothing, yet emotions surface without explanation. A sudden tightness in the chest, a wave of sadness with no source. Grief without a face, regret without a cause. It's proof that something happened, even if memory refuses to cooperate. The mind erases events, but the body keeps the score. And that silent knowledge terrifies him more than prison ever could, because it suggests the past is still alive somewhere inside. As the evidence piles up, his world grows smaller. One room, one story, one version of events repeated endlessly. No alternative, no escape, no second narrative allowed to breathe. He starts to understand this isn't about finding the truth anymore. It's about choosing which truth is easier to live with. And outside, behind glass and whispered conversations, voices are forming opinions that will soon decide his fate. The room changes when the glass appears, even though the walls stay the same. Now he's never truly alone. Eyes follow him from the other side. Muted voices leak through, distorted, stripped of humanity and warmth. They talk about him like he's an object, a problem to be solved. Every whisper feels heavier than a shout because it carries certainty. It's strange how people sound braver when you can't answer back. And behind the glass, judgment learns how to speak softly. He watches their mouths move, trying to read meaning from broken shapes. Sometimes they shake their heads. Sometimes they nod like the answer is obvious. He wonders which version of him they're discussing, the monster or the mistake. Without memory, he has no counterstory to offer. Truth feels fragile when it can't defend itself. Have you ever felt misunderstood and powerless to correct it? Multiply that feeling by a life sentence, and you'll understand his silence. The glass reflects his face back at him, faint and distorted. For a moment, he studies himself like they do, searching for clues. Is there something in his eyes that gives him away? Something that says, I did it, even if his mind refuses to cooperate? Self-doubt is contagious when everyone around you is already convinced. And slowly, he starts borrowing their fear, their suspicion. It's dangerous when other people's voices grow louder than your own. Doctors speak of trauma. Guards speak of lies. Lawyers speak of strategy. No one speaks of mercy. Not yet. Every profession has its language, and none of them sound like hope. They reduce his life to theories, patterns, probabilities. Love becomes pathology. Memory loss becomes manipulation. When words lose compassion, they become weapons. And he's standing unarmed in the middle of the conversation. Sometimes laughter slips through the glass, quiet but sharp. Not cruel laughter. Worse than that, casual laughter. It reminds him that life continues normally outside his cage. People joke, sip coffee, argue about lunch plans. Meanwhile, his entire existence is being dissected sentence by sentence. That contrast hurts more than anger ever could. It proves how small one life can feel when it's not yours. He presses his hand against the glass once, unsure why. It's cold, unresponsive, designed to separate, not connect. On the other side, no one mirrors a gesture. That's when he understands a glass isn't there for safety alone. It's there to make judgment easier, cleaner, less human. Distance turns people into decisions instead of souls. And distance is doing its job perfectly. As the voices fade, one thought refuses to leave him alone. If they already believe they know who he is, does the truth still matter? Or has the story moved on without him? He feels something tightening. Fear mixed with a strange sense of inevitability. Because when voices agree long enough, they start sounding like facts. And somewhere beyond the glass, a single word keeps returning. Love. The word that might explain everything or destroy him completely. Love stops being a feeling and turns into a question he can't escape. They say it was love that pushed him past the edge. But love shouldn't feel this dark. He tries to remember warmth, laughter, shared silence. anything gentle. Instead, his mind offers pressure, confusion, and a sense of losing control. If love was involved, it wasn't calm or patient. It must have been loud, desperate, and full of fear. And fear has a way of wearing love's face when things fall apart. He wonders how many crimes have been forgiven simply because they were labeled love. People romanticize passion until it becomes dangerous. They call obsession devotion and jealousy protection. Have you ever seen someone excuse their worst behavior by saying, "I just cared too much"? That's where love quietly starts turning into madness. He feels that line somewhere inside him, thin and unstable. And not remembering which side he stood on terrifies him. The doctors mention emotional overload, psychological breaks, moments of dissociation. Big words for what might have been a simple human collapse. A mind stretched too far by expectations, fear, and dependency. Maybe love didn't break him. Maybe loneliness did. Sometimes people don't snap because they're cruel. They snap because they're exhausted from holding everything together. That possibility lingers longer than any diagnosis. He asks himself if love can survive without memory. If you forget someone completely, does the love disappear too? Or does it stay buried, leaking through emotions with no explanation? The sadness he feels might be proof of something real once existing. Pain doesn't come from nothing. It comes from loss. And loss doesn't always need memory to hurt. That realization hits him harder than any accusation. There are moments when anger flashes through him, sharp and unexpected. It scares him because anger feels familiar, almost practiced. Was that part of the love they're talking about? Love that demands, controls, suffocates. He hates that he can't separate truth from possibility. When memory is gone, imagination fills the gaps mercilessly. And imagination doesn't care about fairness. He remembers nothing specific, yet emotions collide inside him daily. Tenderness followed by guilt, longing followed by shame. It's like his heart remembers what his mind refuses to show. That imbalance creates chaos, not clarity. And chaos is easy to mislabel as madness, especially when everyone is already watching for it, especially when love is the chosen explanation. As he lies awake, one thought refuses to let him rest. If love pushed him here, was it love he lost or himself? Because madness doesn't always arrive screaming. Sometimes it whispers, pretending to be devotion. And if that's true, then memory isn't the only thing missing. Something deeper may have broken long before the locked room. And soon, the world will decide what that something means. The day arrives without drama, which somehow makes it worse. No thunder, no warning, just a schedule written by people who slept well. They call it Judgment Day, like it's an event, not a fracture. He feels the weight before anyone speaks, pressing down on his chest. Judgment doesn't wait for memory to return. It only waits for silence long enough to sound like agreement, and silence has been his constant companion. He sits still as they list facts that don't feel like his life. Dates, locations, conclusions delivered with professional calm. Each word lands like it belongs to someone else's story. Have you ever listened to someone describe you and not recognize yourself? That feeling grows until it swallows every attempt to protest. Because arguing without memory feels like lying without intention. And intention matters more to them than truth. The room is full, yet he has never felt more alone. Eyes observe him the way people watch storms, curious, distant, detached. No one asks how it feels to be judged without a past. No one asks what it costs to defend emptiness. They assume the absence of memory removes complexity. But complexity doesn't disappear. It just becomes invisible. And invisible things are easy to dismiss. Words like responsibility and accountability float through the air. Important words, necessary words, but hollow in his mouth. How do you take responsibility for something you can't remember doing? How do you explain innocence when proof lives only in your head? Judgment loves certainty, not questions. And questions are all he has left. That imbalance seals the tone of the room. He watches their faces as if searching for cracks of doubt. A raised eyebrow, a pause, a breath held too long. But doubt doesn't survive long in organized judgment. The system rewards conclusions, not hesitation. He understands now this isn't about who he is, it's about what fits best into their narrative. And narratives don't need memory, only structure. A strange calm settles in, heavy and cold. Not acceptance, not peace, something close to surrender. The body learns to prepare for outcomes the mind can't process yet. Hope shrinks, not because it's gone, but because it's tired. Judgment doesn't crush you all at once. It wears you down until resistance feels pointless. And that exhaustion looks a lot like guilt from the outside. As the final words approach, one thought keeps echoing inside him. If truth never returns, does judgment become permanent? Or is there still space for doubt after the sentence is spoken? He realizes this moment isn't just about punishment. It's about deciding which version of reality survives. And once judgment settles, it rarely lets go, because memory can fade, but decisions don't. Truth feels fragile when it has nothing to hold on to. Inside him, there's a quiet certainty that something doesn't add up. Not innocence, not guilt, just a sense of wrong direction. It's like standing in a familiar place with all the signs turned backward. He knows he didn't choose this path, even if he can't explain why. And without proof, certainty becomes a private burden, one no one else is required to believe. They tell him truth needs evidence, memory, consistency. He has none of that to offer. What he has instead is intuition, a feeling rooted deeper than thought. But intuition doesn't survive interrogation rooms or legal language. Have you ever known something was wrong without being able to explain it? That's the kind of truth he carries. Invisible, inconvenient, and easy to ignore. He replays conversations he doesn't remember having. Faces he's told he loved but can't picture. Moments described to him like scenes from a film he never watched. The injustice isn't just the accusation. It's the exclusion. His truth doesn't qualify for the discussion. And when truth can't speak, lies don't need to shout. They just wait. There's a particular cruelty in being certain and powerless at the same time. Certainty without language feels like screaming underwater. He tries to express it through tone, posture, silence. But silence once again betrays him. They interpret calm as indifference, confusion as strategy. When truth has no proof, perception wins. And perception is rarely kind. He wonders how many people carry truths they'll never defend. Lies mislabeled, moments misunderstood, intentions misread forever. Maybe that's why stories exist, to give truth a second chance. But his story has been interrupted mid-sentence. Others are finishing it for him now, and they're doing it with confidence. Confidence is persuasive, even when it's wrong. A strange realization settles in. Truth doesn't always save you. Sometimes it only comforts you quietly while everything else collapses. That doesn't make it useless. It makes it lonely. He holds on to it anyway like a secret flame, because surrendering truth would mean surrendering himself completely. And he's not ready for that kind of disappearance. Not yet. As the system moves forward, something shifts inside him. If truth can't free him, maybe it can protect something else. Maybe memory will never return, but meaning still might. He senses the story isn't finished. It's just being paused. Because sentences can be written without memory. But memory has a way of returning when no one expects it. And onwhere ahead, a final moment is waiting. The sentence comes before the memory ever does. Words fall from the judge's mouth with a finality that doesn't echo back. He listens calmly, almost respectfully, like someone hearing weather reports. Years are mentioned, consequences outlined, futures erased in neat phrases. This is how lives change, without drama, without music, without pause. Judgment rarely cares if understanding arrives later. It only cares that the decision is made. He signs more papers, answers more questions, nods at instructions. The process moves faster now that doubt has been removed. Certainty speeds things up. Hesitation slows nothing. They treat him like someone already archived. No one expects resistance from a man without memory. And in that expectation, something quietly breaks. Not his spirit, but his last illusion. As they lead him away, a strange sensation surfaces. Not memory, something closer to pressure behind the eyes. A flicker of emotion without images, without language. Love? Fear? Regret? He can't tell. It's like standing at the edge of a dream you're about to remember. The body reacts before the mind catches up, and that reaction scares him more than the sentence. The world beyond the courtroom feels unreal. Sounds are sharper. Light feels intrusive. Time stretches thin. He wonders if this is what clarity feels like right before it disappears. Sometimes the mind protects itself by forgetting. Sometimes it waits until safety is gone to remember. That irony doesn't escape him now. It settles deep, heavy, and unresolved. In the quiet moments that follow, his thoughts slow down. The noise fades, replaced by something dangerously close to awareness. Names don't return, faces don't form, but emotions sharpen. Loss becomes specific, even without detail. Grief doesn't need memory to exist. It only needs absence. And absence fills the space around him completely. He begins to understand something no one prepared him for. Memory isn't the only way to know who you are. Choices still exist, even after judgment. Meaning can survive without explanation. This realization doesn't free him, but it steadies him. And steadiness feels like resistance in a world built on certainty. It's the first thing that truly belongs to him. As the door closes behind him once more, a final thought lingers. What if memory returns after everything is decided? What if truth arrives too late to matter? Some endings don't wait for answers. They leave space instead for reflection, for doubt, for unease. And somewhere in that space, something stirs. Not memory, but the promise of it. Some stories don't end with answers. They end with questions that refuse to stay quiet. Was he a victim of his own broken mind? Or did the truth arrive too late to save him? If memory defines who we are, what happens when it disappears? But judgment doesn't? Now I want to hear you. Do you think he was innocent, guilty, or trapped somewhere in between? Have you ever felt misunderstood, judged without being fully heard? Even in small moments of life? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might reveal a truth this story couldn't. And if there's a song you believe hides a powerful story like this one, tell me which song we should turn into the next emotional journey. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and stay with us. Because here, music isn't just heard, it's felt, questioned, and transformed into story.